You listen to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Now joined by the great Matt Muehlebach, I'm Mike Luke. Hello, Matt. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing well, Mike. How you doing, man?
Well, I've been better. But
the day after.
Let's talk about it. First of all, just you and I talked about this pretty much all season that, we thought this was a good team, but Tommy Lloyd did a pretty good job masking, some of the deficiencies here. But I think what threw everybody for a loss, including me, was any form of a lack of urgency. It just looked like they were going through the motions. And quite frankly, they looked tight out there, Matt. I mean, from about the 10-minute on in the first half, they looked tight.
Yeah. And, it's odd, because you look back 5 days ago, they beat UCLA. They had that run of Stanford, ASU, who we just saw have an unbelievable play-in game, and then UCLA on Saturday to win the Pac-12 championship. And you look at their body language, their mojo, everything. They were hyped, during that game. They looked super excited. They played with a lot of urgency and enthusiasm, and
right.
they just didn't yesterday. And there's no excuse. I mean, I've seen it happen. I've been a part of that before, where ironically, or I guess coincidentally, in 1990, we played the Pac-12 tournament. So it was the last Pac-12 or Pac-10 tournament back then before they canceled it for about 10 years or whatever. And we beat UCLA in the final. And UCLA ended up being an Elite Eight team that year. They had Don McClain and Tracy Murray and a host of other NBA players. We played our best basketball the entire year. And then for whatever reason, 5 days later, we were terrible. We played South Florida, barely won. And then we got upset by Alabama, and we had nothing. It was a weird situation. We had really weird energy. We were in Long Beach, and you figure West Coast, tons of our fans were there. We were 2 seed, just like this team. The parallels are eerie to me, but it's strangely what I say sometimes. The best thing that can happen to a team before the tournament is to lose. And if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago when UCLA made a Final Four run from the play-in game,
right?
I believe they lost 3 or 4 games consecutively before they made that run.
Right. I think what is so dispiriting to at least people like me, though, is when you lost to, you brought up the Alabama game, and you and I were talking about that in Vegas.
Yeah.
That was a team that was loaded with NBA players right there, and probably was underseeded. Yeah. And to me, the biggest loss, in my opinion, or the most disappointing one, will be Santa Clara. Because, again, you had people also have kind of a misconception of that game. Steve Nash was not Steve Nash at that point. He had 10 points on 1 of 7 shooting, averaged 8 points per game. But I didn't watch that game and say, man, Arizona looks shook. Arizona just didn't play well. Yeah. In this game, Matt, it looked like Arizona was shook and didn't play well. And you know what I think we also found, and we're going to get to Kirk Risa in just a second here. But what Arizona also found too is that you didn't, on the biggest moment, you didn't have a closer. You didn't have that dude. You didn't have that Sean Elliott, that you played with. You didn't have the Miles Simon. Nobody really wanted that shot. And I know Courtney Ramey's getting beat up a lot on Twitter for, taking those shots. At least Courtney Ramey was trying to take the shot. And that, to me, Matt, is something that really was disconcerting, to put it mildly.
I'm with you. And I go back to your original point. Yeah, they looked tight. They were tight. It was a strange conundrum because we all knew that where Arizona had its, significant advantage was inside, right? The problem with it was, one of the guys inside, I think, had a broken hand. Ballo had a broken leg.
Make the point that you made to me on the phone the other day, or last night. I thought it was an interesting point.
Yeah, and it's, so they're trying to go. Here's the thing: you're trying to go inside, which was the right move,
right?
But at the same time, I love how Tommy, talks about the tournament in terms of letting it rip, and you got to play loose, you got to play free, you can't play not to lose. Once you get in a position of playing not to lose, like it's almost like a prevent defense in football,
right?
Prevents you from winning. And you could tell that's what happened. And so the conundrum, as I said, was you got to get it inside because that's where your advantage is. But at the same time, they're packing the paint. They're giving you jump shots. And so you kind of know, the strategies to get inside, but they're giving you, and it is not easy when someone just tells you, I'm giving you a jump shot. And,
right.
It's almost, it was really affected the team.
All right, let's talk about that in a second. But first, Four Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. You can get a kilt lifter. I like kilt lifter. Matt Muehlebach has texted me pictures of Four Peaks before as well. So again, get them anywhere you want. Now, here's the deal. You already know the best place to be today, St. Patty's Day, Four Peaks, 8th Street Pub, of course. Hang with your favorite degenerates, us or them, and enjoy a damn good time. Must be 21 and up to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly. Now, on top of that, you've got DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, you might say to yourself, DraftKings Sportsbook, Mike Luke's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. I'm going to go against him. So right now, I am going to pick against ASU tonight, but here's the deal. You can put down $5 and you can get up to $200 in free plays. Now, you might be a big Golden State Warriors fan like our good friend Matt Muehlebach right here. And for obvious reasons, the Golden State Warriors are playing very, very good ball right now. And so you might say to yourself, all right, well, don't know what the deal was with Wiggins, but you had Steve Kerr right there. That's why you would bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX, and bet on the Warriors. So 21 and up, Arizona only. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. I've been telling Matt all year the Warriors are going to get together, but you need Andrew Wiggins out there. Again, DraftKings Sportsbook app. Okay, Matt, you know a thing or two about guard play here. My mom wanted to ask a question too about this, where when you get players, and again, I'm all for the new, do you think that players that come here, let's just say internationally, and again, I'm all for the international aspect of it, because again, the more players, the better. But do you think players like Kerr Kriisa, because a lot of people are bringing up his comment right about it's just it's just another game, which is definitely true. And my mom wanted me to ask you a question right here. Hold on, Mom. Let me pull up my text right here. All right, Mom, who's a big Matt Muehlebach fan, says, and so basically, yeah, watching Selection Sunday, it was just kind of like, all right, well, or we're off. Do players like that understand what Arizona basketball is, what March Madness is? I mean, because to me, it's an interesting question that I don't necessarily have an answer to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think they do. I think they do. I think once you get to Arizona, you get in McHale, you see all this stuff hanging on the walls. You see players coming back. Hey, we had an unbelievable reunion. What was it? Well, it was actually for the Lute Olson Memorial last year. And I think they see it. They feel it. They know all these guys. They know Richard Jefferson and Andre Iguodala, and you mentioned Steve Kerr. They see them all in the NBA. And I think they get it. I think they know the history. They know what it means. And I think they understand the tournament and what's at stake. Like I said, it's difficult to even answer. I don't really have an answer why they felt like maybe the urgency wasn't there. Maybe the mojo wasn't there. Maybe for whatever reason, their enthusiasm. And of all the things that Kerr Kriisa has been good at, that's been one of them. His enthusiasm has been amazing for 2.5 years, or 3 years. So why that happened, I don't know. It's a mystery, and it certainly affected, how they played.
In my opinion, and again, I've kind of come to this realization over, and again, people out there smarter than me have told me this from the beginning. I like Kerr Kriisa as a player on the team. I think he can do some good things. And again, he's made some big shots. But I do believe at this stage, I believe you're somewhat limited, though, if Kerr Kriisa is one of your starting players at that, that 30-minute position. Now, again, Tommy Lloyd's a lot smarter than me. He'll figure this one out. But I guess my main thing is that when you have a guy like Kerr, who's not a Reggie Geary defender, who's not a Matt Muehlebach defender right there, one of the more underrated defenders in school history, by the way, Matt Muehlebach.
I appreciate it.
But when you're not a next level defender and you're not really a lights out shooter, you're kind of a facilitator. I think it makes it it makes it easier to be able to guard people. I would like to see his role maybe adjusted a little bit. I'd like to see Kylan Boswell get 30 minutes per game going in. That's at least where I would start. Am I just being a novice Matt Muehlebach, or what do you say?
No, I think you're looking at all the ways to get better, right? And it might change. I wonder. He never said anything about it. I do wonder if he wasn't 100% with. I mean, he's played what 4 or 3 NCAA games now, and I don't think he's been 100% for any of them,
right.
which is unfortunate. Here's my thing, and I go back to, I've always had this Final Four formula, or final formula, if you will.
Final formula, get it? I like that.
Formula, you get that? And so I think the formula that I came up with, and it's not that hard. I mean, people come up with this all the time, but I think you start with the fact that you have multiple NBA players.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at this team and I'm not sure they do. And they might, I'm just not sure. And once after multiple NBA players, if you look at the 4 Final Fours that Arizona's had over the years, Arizona's had at least 3 or 4. I mean, some of them have had 5 or 6 NBA players on those teams. 88, I think, had 5 or 6. I think the second thing you typically have with a Final Four type team, if you look at the history, not just Arizona, but anybody, is an NBA point guard. And so whether that means, Kerr could make the league or not, or maybe plays off guard, maybe plays off the ball. And I think out of the 4 that Arizona's had, they've had 4 unbelievable NBA point guards. The only one that wasn't was Jason Gardner, and he was
surrounded by the best team in school history. So, exactly. And he's the exception. But when you have that kind of talent around, it makes things easier for you, for sure.
100%. Then the third thing is rim protection.
Right.
And even though this team was
Good
big,
point.
it didn't really have rim protection. And a hurt Balla was not rim protection as well, right? He had the broken left hand. But you look again at most of those Arizona teams, they had rim protection. And then I think the thing that I think was the hard part about yesterday was, my other fourth thing is multiple 3-point shooters. You got to have guys that make threes in today's day and age. And they actually shot the ball pretty well this year. That was a real question going into the season.
Right.
It was a real question after the first couple months when the bigs played so well. They said, hey, people are going to dare them to shoot. And I thought they responded well in a number of, throughout the year. You look at the percentage, they were a top 40, 45 3-point shooting team. But for whatever reason, as we kind of back to that conundrum, they got tight. The shot was something they were wanting to get it inside, and once they got tentative, nothing was falling, and that killed them. Because you take all those things that I just said, if you just make 2 threes, you win the game.
Right. Yeah. But see, the other thing too that I think is so frustrating for Arizona fans is, and we get a lot of recruiting questions. I'll get into those tomorrow. I want to just mainly talk about the game right here. But with Princeton didn't even play well.
I know.
If Princeton had played well, they would have won by 20. That's the point, Matt, that I think is so disconcerting to so many people, is that Princeton looked like trash. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. And you and I were texting back and forth during the game. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Missouri, who I don't even think is good, beats them by 30.
Oh,
I mean, they were incredibly unimpressive, Matt.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. They didn't shoot it well at all. And how many shots did they miss the last 7-8 minutes that you thought, oh no, here they're going to make this and take the lead? I almost felt like, in a weird way, it would have been better had Arizona gotten down 10-0 to start the game. Right. Because it would have kind of
lit a fire under them.
It would have lit a fire. It would have kind of created, having the lead. I think I'm correct in this. They had the lead the entire game till the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things that, because of that, the sort of playing not to lose was so evident. And I use this analogy. I thought of this analogy the other day. When the tournaments like this, when you're walking down a sidewalk and you're not concerned about falling off the sidewalk, it's 6 inches, to fall down to the street, right? Nobody's worried about it. So you can walk within 1 inch of the sidewalk, walk with no worries, walk along like no big deal.
Right.
But all of a sudden, if you said that sidewalk was, and I'll say this for St. Patrick's Day, was the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland.
Right.
And it's 900 feet to the bottom of the ocean there.
Right.
It does things to you. You people know what I'm saying. And it's that kind of fear of falling down that can create weird things among people. And I think, again, the playing not to lose, it was just a tough situation.
All right, there's a couple things too that I think we also found out about, and that's where maybe a guy like Ben Mathurin masked some things. And again, I think we're going to find out that Ben Mathurin is going to be one of the handful of best players to ever come through here. But first, Circle K. You might say to yourself, Mike Luke, what do I need to know about Circle K? Here's what you need to know. John Schuster and I drove up to Las Vegas, and we stopped by Circle K twice. Once on the way up, once on the way back. We got free, or not free, but we got good rates on gas. We got some good food as well. And here's the deal. You can give up to, you can get a $500 gas card because we're excited to partner with our friends at Circle K to kick things off. We've teamed up for an amazing giveaway opportunity. Text PHNX to 31310 for an opportunity to win a $500 gift card or gas card. See show notes for details. And Tap and Bottle. Tap and Bottle, the great tap and Bottle watch parties. Matt Muehlebach has been to one of these when the great Kevin Woodman showed up downtown. Check it out, Scott and Rebecca. Support local. You can get Four Peaks there as well. Or you can go to the Northwest location as well. Good stuff. Big fans of our friends there. There's a reason that they're expanding all the time. It's because they're doing things the right way. Tap and Bottle. All right. Now, one thing we did find out, though, is that last year you had a closer. You played with guys that were closers. You had the ultimate closer in Sean Elliott. You had last year you had Ben Mathurin. You had, every good team's had somebody like that generally. There's no closer on this team. There was nobody that really wanted the ball. Julius Tabelis is the best player on the team, and this isn't a diss towards Zoo, but some guys are just not wired in the way that Giving you an example, Michael Dickerson, one of the best players in U of A history. Way more talented than Miles Simon. There's a reason that Michael Dickerson would have had a big-time NBA career, and Miles Simon didn't. Miles Simon wanted shots at the end of the games. Michael Dickerson had no problem giving Miles Simon those shots. It's just how some people are wired. We found out that Julius Tabelis just he doesn't embrace those moments. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but now that you know that, I think you got to plan accordingly. And if you're Tommy Lloyd, you got to find that dude.
Yeah, no, I think they had, they didn't have a lot of guys that created their own shot. And
right.
and even to Zoo's point, like Zoo got a lot of stuff, in the offense, in the flow of the game, running up and down, obviously on high-low stuff, fast break stuff. And frankly, again, Princeton took that away. They
right.
kind of had the Stanford game plan of packing everything in the paint, and it was tough for him even to get looks down the stretch, not to mention even get the ball
right.
in a good position. So, no, I think, look, it's like every year they're going to lose. They lose Ramey and Henderson, right? We don't know about Zoo. That's a possibility. I think you have roster changes in construction now every year. So my guess is, look, a couple things on Tommy. One, I think he'll roll up his sleeves like he's going to do every summer and get after it. He was going to do that whether they lost yesterday or went to the Final Four, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Wouldn't have mattered. But I will say this about Tommy. I thought, no one likes to lose those games. It's crushing.
Right.
It's a crushing defeat when you have those type of losses. Yeah, it sucks to lose in the Sweet 16. It sucks to lose in the Elite Eight. But when you have a first rounder, it's crushing. I thought he did a hell of a job. When you lose, what are you going to say? You got it. And he was very classy about it. I thought he was right to the point. He said, we didn't have it. We didn't have the enthusiasm and energy we should have.
Is that on the coach or is that on the players? When you get to the high
That's
level.
the players.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's the players, 100%. I mean, I saw what he was saying before the game. I saw what he was saying the whole week. You play with juice. You play with energy. You play with passion.
Right.
This is okay. To get down to it, college basketball, for better or for worse, it just is what it is. If you look at what Arizona had, they had an incredible season up until yesterday.
Right.
They overperformed probably what they were on paper. They won the Pac-12 championship. They won they won the Maui championship, which was an incredible tournament. They beat Tennessee at home. They beat UCLA twice. You look at all the things they did, it was phenomenal. But then they lost the first round in the tournament. And
right.
The problem is that, like I said, for better or for worse, college basketball becomes about the tournament because it's where everything really comes to a head. And so like I said, UCLA 2 years ago, they're a play-in game. They probably maybe even underperformed where they were. They were young, lose their last 4 games. But who cares? Because they went on an incredible deep run that was magical. And so you would rate that season an A+ for UCLA, despite the fact that their regular season probably wasn't as good as they thought it should.
You know what they had though too, Matt? They had 2 guys in Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez even this year too, that Arizona just doesn't have. You might say that, Azuolas Tubelis puts up better numbers. Tiger Campbell, you're not going to have to worry about him being up for a game. You're not going to have to worry about Jaime Jaquez being up for a game. The way that those guys are wired, quite frankly, is just different, I think, than some of the guys on this Arizona team.
Well, you mentioned Miles. I mean, that's a great example. Miles didn't play in the NBA, or would he play 1 game or something? Played maybe a minute, a cup of coffee in the NBA, but he was wired for those moments and wired for the tournament. And
Luke knew it.
And he had the greatest run in history. U of A. That's why his jersey's hanging up in the rafters. So, hats off to Miles Simon. Like, that's why we all love him.
Mm-hmm. So now let me ask you this: a lot of people are asking about right now. Let's see here. You know what? I'm going to go with this right now. Brandon Felt. Kerr playing 36 minutes with a messed up shoulder, and Kylan playing 13. Even when Kerr is 100% healthy, Kerr is the better guard, loyal to a fault. What I see a little bit in Kerr Kriisa, to be quite frank with you, and again, the greats do this too. I thought Luke did this with Shakur. You get some coaches, and again, this is just Mike Luke talking right here from the Best Western in Sacramento. So,
you're still in Sacto, aren't you?
I am still in Sacto. Yes. By the way, I don't hate Sacramento. It's a cool.
It's nice. It's not bad. I grew up in the Bay Area. I used to go up there for tournaments all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But, Mustafa Shakur to me was kind of and again, other things were happening, but Arizona basketball to me kind of ceased to be the dominant year in and year out entity once Jason Gardner left and Shakur came in. And I know this for a fact, talking with some players on the team, that it kind of drove some players up a wall, that Shakur was not held to a high standard the way that some other players were. And again, this is just from an outsider perspective. I see a little bit of that though with Kerr, in that Kerr was playing 36 minutes. It was clear that that Princeton wanted him to shoot the ball, and he's turning the ball over left and right. And I think that's where I think a lot of fans are frustrated, because it's like, all right, this team, and let's say he's hurt. This team knows that he's a non-entity out there, and you've got a guy in Boswell who's getting better, or game in and game out. Where was Kylan Boswell?
Yeah, no, it felt like he should have played a little more, arguably, and look, I think Boswell's got a chance. We talk about maybe are there any pros on this team? He might be. Yeah, be the one guy.
Which I never would have thought 2 months ago.
I know. I never would have thought that. I give him and the staff credit, because they knew what they were looking at. Because I remember you and I talked about it early on. I didn't see it, but it was a dumb reason not to see it after 2 or 3 games, and he was hurt. He was hurt in the summer.
Tell the people what Steve Kerr told you one time about Zaire Williams. I think it's a great quote.
Yeah, Steve gave me a great quote about. He said that we were talking about young guys coming out, a couple of freshmen, Pac-12 guys. He was asking me about them, and he goes, I have no idea how to judge them. They're just babies. He said they're babies. I don't know really even what to say. And here you and I were judging a guy after a couple games.
Yeah, right.
2 games.
Right.
Which was probably unfair, but he's really come on, and I think Kerr's point is really well taken. And by the way, we always joke, like, one more time, that Boswell's 17.
Right.
And so he's even younger than a typical freshman. And so he's a total baby. I think he's got nothing but upside.
All right. Now, what would you, for next year then, let's just say that Azuolas Tubelis and Oumar Ballo come back, mainly because you and I disagree a little bit here. I think you think Zoo will play in the league. I don't necessarily see it, but I would love to be wrong on that. Oumar Ballo coming back. Arizona, though, at the wing, you assume you have Kylan Boswell. What does Arizona need? What does Tommy Lloyd need to do within reason? Because, again, as Doug Gottlieb told me a couple times on here, he said there aren't pros in the transfer portal. There's a reason they're in the transfer portal. Yeah. What does Arizona need to do there to get that athleticism / scoring there that, yes, maybe you're not bringing in Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson, but you're bringing in something like, an upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tommy's got his eyes on some young guys that are major talent guys. Who's the kid that's coming from Texas?
Your guy, KJ Lewis. I believe you know somebody in his family. If I'm not
KJ
mistaken.
Lewis, I know his dad pretty well. Great family. That guy, as far as I know, is a really good player, a defensive, physical dog that that Arizona could obviously use. So I think it's just getting him and some more guys like him.
Right.
And I think of course, Tommy's going to explore the portal, and I think getting one. I think Tommy has it right. I think the model and what he's doing is right. And he's going to get it right. I have a ton of faith in what's going to happen next year and the following years. It's just, for the reasons we just talked about, it didn't end well this year. And I go back to that final four formula, which is he's going to get multiple pros in here, and they're going to have an NBA point guard, and they're going to have guys that, multiple shooters, and they're going to have rim protectors, and it's going to happen. Look, I just go back to this, and this is no excuse for losing yesterday, because that was a bummer. But they lost 3 legitimately first-round draft picks last year. I know, what did Koloko go 33rd? But when you
all 3 legitimate NBA players who will make a lot of money in the NBA.
Legit. And I would say this. You were the one that we disagreed on Dalen Terry. You were the one that was probably higher on him than I was and saw it more than I did. But I became a big fan sort of in the second half of last season. And it's funny, you think of Dalen Terry as a dog because he was thin and kind of funny.
But he wanted it, though.
He wanted
it.
And he took – how about him, right? He took big shots. And I just felt like if they had just had Terry, right? And I think they thought Terry was coming back. If they had just had him, I think it would have been an unbelievably different team. Just one guy changes a lot.
And I'm going to I think there's a great point here by AZ and things right here that I want to get to in just a second here, but got to pay the last 2 of the bills right here. Illegal Pete's. All right, you might say to yourself, Mike, what can Illegal Pete's do for you? Me. If you're like me and I don't want to compare anybody to me, and your bracket's busted, why not go to Illegal Pete's right now? Nothing cures the bracket, or nothing cures that, like, my bracket is busted in the first round, like fresh limes, tequila, lots of tequila, and sweet agave. Try out an Illegal Pete's Coin Premium or frozen margarita. Stop by for happy hour, 3 to 6 p.m. You might see our good friend Brody Dryden. I have seen him up there before.
Nice.
And I will tell you this. You don't miss Brody Dryden when he walks into the room. You might miss me. You're not going to miss Brody Dryden. And again, so check it out. Great place for a watch party, burrito bowl, you name it. They got it. Illegal Pete's. And one last one, Mountain Mike's Pizza. I am not Mountain Mike. Again, there might be a campaign out there to say I am. I am not. The real Mountain Mike is much smarter than me. He comes up with great pizza. By the way, there's a Mountain Mike's up here in Sacramento that I'm going to hit up later today, which I'm very, very excited about. Head over to mountainmikespizza.com or to their Mesa, Chandler, or Tucson locations to get your next order. Reminder, new Diehards get a $50 voucher upon signing up. And again, lunch buffet, great food, you name it, they've got it. All right. I think this AC and Things makes a great point. Model is right, but the soft players remind me a little bit of the early Gonzaga teams. Here's what great coaches do. They go through different incarnations of what they're trying to do. And yes, Tommy Lloyd is a great coach. You don't win. I don't care what anybody says. You don't win the amount of games that you win the first 2 years without being good.
The all-time record.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, you don't win that, especially with this year's team, where there were some flaws for sure, but we saw it with Luke. I don't need to rehash, he went away from the big men to go in more up tempo. Gonzaga, a little bit the same way. You would always hear about Gonzaga getting, basically pushed around in the NCAA tournament, and lo and behold, they went out and they got different dudes out there that could be more physical up front. And as opposed to just getting the Adam Morrisons, not that you don't want the Adam Morrisons, but guys that are a little bit more physical and whatnot. Lloyd's going to get that. And because, again, you don't win the amount of games you do. I think people all look at coaches and they tend to look at them as just stationary figures that they can't improve. I mean, heck, you watch Sean Miller, who just had a nice win today. And he said, the year off did him a world of good because, it made him sit back and realize the importance of getting up and down, opening up his offense. Lloyd, as you said on the phone yesterday, is a young coach. This is his second year. So I think it's not necessarily fair to judge him based off 2 years. And if you're going to judge him based off 2 years, you can't just look at the NCAA tournament and not look at the regular season as well.
100%. Yeah. And, here's the thing, too. The tournament unfairly dictates the narrative too much. But I say unfairly because people forget about regular seasons. You just mentioned Sean Miller, who, by the way, I really like Sean. He's always been really great to me. When he left, I think I've told you this on this show before. He had sent, contacted me, had an awesome just when he moved on, he sent me a really, really, really nice text about Arizona, how much he respects the history of it, the program, the people. Mm-hmm. But the narrative with Sean is they were just down I think they were down 10 or 12.
They're down 13 points.
They're down 13.
Right.
They were really lucky to win that game, but the narrative now is going to be, hey, Sean's moving on, did a great job. He's this and that and the other.
Let him play. Let him get back in it. Right.
But the narrative, if that guy makes the last layup of the game, the narrative maybe changes completely. Right. Like, here we go, Sean's losing in the first round. And the crazy part was Sean was an amazing first round and second round head coach for his first 10 or 12 seasons.
Right.
He was really good at it. And then the last few, they didn't work out. When you're a head coach in the tournament, you put yourself in these positions. I don't care who you are going to have some stub your toe moments. It's going to happen. But like you said, I think it's a great point with Tommy. He's only in his second year. He had a really good year, an amazing year last year. It was a tough out in the Sweet 16. This was a stub your toe. This was a bad, this sucked.
This was a bad loss. There's no doubt about it.
It's a bad one. And, but he's going to learn from it. He'll come back and he'll figure it out. And like you say, he'll figure out, okay, what do we need? How do we need to maybe change things up a little bit? Maybe there's some personnel. Maybe there's a way to approach things differently. Like you said, I don't blame him at all for the energy of the team. Right. But maybe he sees it and says, okay, this is something I can do to better fix that.
One thing I would like to see him do, and again, I always need to preface this by saying I'm Mike Luke at the Best Western in Sacramento, so take this for what it's worth. One thing I don't like about the team, though, Matt, I don't like all the team chirps at the officials the entire game. Now, granted, they didn't really do it here, but just watching them all up and down, everybody talks to the officials. I mean, I get that, we're in the year 2023 and kids want to express themselves, but that to me also is something where, all right, at the end of the day, guys, you need to be quiet here. And, again, that kind of goes to me with Kerr. If you're going to talk that much, you got to do something. And I would like to see that toned down a little bit. Mainly, maybe it's just my old soul coming through.
You're an old school guy. Right. Well, here's the irony is that, Tommy wants them to show their personality. He mentioned that to me in one of the first games this year. And so, okay, you take the chirping with, okay, show your personality from the opening tip and how you play. And normally they do that. And for whatever reason, it was not there yesterday. Right. I would have, in some ways, almost wanted to say something, like get in the game.
Show some emotion.
Yeah, show the emotion.
Get a technical. I mean, yes, right.
You saw them after they beat UCLA. It looked like they were fired up. They were as emotional as I've seen them all year. Look at them after they beat who was it in the final? Was it Creighton in the final of Maui? How excited they were. And they didn't have it yesterday.
All right. He is the great Matt Muehlebach, also AKA Mark Georgeson right there. So again, Matt, always appreciate your time, my guy.
I appreciate you, Mike. It was good. It was a good year for Arizona basketball. It was a
horrible ending, but nobody ever said backing the A would be easy, but it's still a privilege. How about that?
It is. And, you got to give those guys credit. They outplayed what they did during the season. They didn't in the last game, but you move on. And let's put it this way. I don't think anyone was shocked they didn't win the national title.
Right.
And that's what this program's trying to do. It's trying to get to another Final Four and win another national title. I think that's ultimately their goal, right? They're not here to win first round games.
Right, for sure.
And so, it sucked, but hey.
Back at it, man.
Strap them back on and redo it.
Right. He's Matt Muehlebach. I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.